Welcome to Shreveport Bossier Local Lens, the podcast dedicated to sharing the stories of the people making a difference in the Shreveport Bossier community. Hosted by Jeremy Sutton, each episode dives deep into inspiring conversations with local leaders, creators, and change makers who bring unique perspectives and positive impact to our area. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm here with my friend today, Shannon Crawford. She is with the Foster and Adoption Ministry at Broadmoor Baptist Church. We're going to be talking about foster care and just kind of her journey into it. So Shannon, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. Can you just, first just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey into foster care?
Okay. So I am a foster and adoptive mom, and our journey with foster care began about 10 years ago. And actually our very first placement is now our son. So as I tell people, sometimes you have kids in your home for a week and sometimes you have them for forever. So he's our forever. And through that journey, learned that it is a roller coaster and comes with, great blessings, but also some really hard moments, and just kind of God put on my heart just that struggle that people go through and how sometimes you can feel very alone in it, and which led to beginning the foster and adoption ministry, just to kind of reach out and build a community.
Yeah. As I'm going to church forever, we always have ministry ideas or things that we can do. And something that I've heard, different people say, well, yeah, that's great that we have that idea, but who's going to run it? And so I know that it wasn't just your idea, but you and some others are running it and doing a great job. So talk about the why you wanted to do that.
So I guess it probably was already kind of in my mind, and others before me at Broadmoor had tried to start things similar and they just kind of fizzled out, didn't really go anywhere. And I think it was with, and this may be controversial, I don't know who listens to your podcast, but Roe versus Wade was over, and I just, thought a system that's already broken and overwhelmed is about to get slammed in the next couple of years. And so a problem that was already a problem was just going to get worse. And, I knew we had a large congregation and people who loved the Lord and wanted to do what, we were called to do. And maybe they just needed to know what the need was and what was going to come out of this more than, I guess them applauding the fact that, we were going to be saving babies' lives, but that, life is precious from, the moment those babies are born until we leave this earth. And that we should protect all life. And that includes kids that are, in an unsafe environment and needing foster homes. So.
Yeah. I think, from a Christian perspective, once Roe versus Wade was overturned, then I think we as Christians kind of got attacked. Well, now we can't abort these babies. Now you're just going to leave them, basically. And so I think that has really been a call to the Christian community to step up and not only say, hey, we want to save babies, but now let's actually save babies that are here. Yeah, so I love that. So I know you've been doing foster care for over 10 years, but what really gave you that passion to do that?
And it didn't start as a passion for foster care. It was more, I'd already always had a heart for adoption, I think, and just the sweet fact that, God invites us and adopts us into his family, and that there were children out there that didn't have loving homes, and that just, I'm a very sensitive person, and, that just broke my heart, and I said, well, if we ever are in a place where we, are able to care for children, then I want to do that. So poor Aaron, I think probably on our first date, I was like, hey, this is something I want to do. So if you're not up for that, we can just stop this now.
Wow. I love that. See,
fire. So
yeah, I love that. My wife told me she was never leaving Bossier on our first date. So I lived in Ruston, and I was like, okay, well, great. So you told Aaron that you had to have foster kids. So hey, good for you.
So we actually looked at foreign adoption initially, and there were several reasons why that wasn't going to work for our family. And we had some friends that just said, "Hey, well, have you ever thought about fostering?" And I was like, "I really don't know much about it, but sure." And so at that point, went through the classes, and then it was kind of like, okay, well, we did these classes, we've had our home study, so I guess now this is it. And we actually got the call for Sam before we even had gotten our paperwork in the mail. So
Wow. Well, I mean, I know huge has been a huge blessing for y'all and for him. So love that. From your perspective, Shannon, what is the biggest need or biggest challenge for foster kids right now?
um well, definitely probably the obvious reason, I mean, thing that they need more is um I think our numbers are somewhere in the 400 range for foster kids, and there are only around 200 foster homes, which means, some of those homes are being overwhelmed with a lot of kids that maybe aren't getting the best attention. Some of those kids are probably going into facilities instead of into homes. And I think sometimes kids are staying in homes beyond the point of when it's safe, just because there isn't another alternative. So that's always going to be more foster homes until we have more foster homes than we have foster kids.
Yeah.
That'll be the main need. And, good, safe, loving homes. And I'd say too, as you can imagine, there's a lot that goes on where these kids are coming from. May have been, an abusive situation that they're going to have trauma from, just being removed from your home and everything is causing trauma. So they really need access to good mental health, and in a timely manner. And our system's so overwhelmed that a lot of times they can't find someone who will take Medicaid, or they can't get in a a short amount of time. And so foster parents who have some training are trying to deal with those things, and you know um, to try to educate them. And there are people that can help them to like kind of navigate some of those common problems, but nothing's the same as the healthcare professional that works in that every day. So yeah, if anybody ever considers doing that and reaching out and just saying, hey, maybe even, waiving your services or reducing them, so that's available for foster families, is really important.
Wow. So not only people for them to live in, but actually mental health professionals that are willing to either A, take Medicaid, or B, lower their costs. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, that's something I didn't know. I mean, that should be obvious, I guess, to me, but I guess I just didn't think about the severe need for mental health care for those kids.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. What do you think's keeping? So Monica and I went through the foster care classes probably 10 years ago, maybe a little less. And so then I was 30. No, maybe it was 13 years ago. So I was 30, 33, something around there. And I remember them saying, hey, we want you to kind of mentor these parents that you're fostering their kids. And I just remember thinking, I cannot do that. Because you start, my experience was they're telling stories, right? Because they're telling you what some of these kids are coming from. And I'm just going, I can't do this. Now I feel like I can. But what is stopping people from signing up to be foster parents, do you think?
Um, honestly,
Yeah, honestly.
I mean, I think for a lot of us, we're just in this like comfortable bubble. And we want our lives to be, comfortable, and we want our kids to do all the things and our life to look this certain way. And when you step into somebody's brokenness, and things get messy. And so, I mean, I think, and we've been there, and I'm not saying I'm not a selfish person, because I completely am. And we've been there too, where like, oh, this doesn't really feel convenient at the time. But that's not what God's called us to. He hasn't called us to convenient. He's called us to, love our neighbors. And sometimes that's hard and sometimes it's messy. And I think that's a lot of it. Um, Probably the one you hear the most is, oh, I couldn't do that. That'd be too hard. How do you give them back? And a lot of times people will add like, I can't even give back like the puppy I fostered.
Right.
Well, that annoys me in two parts. One, children are very different than animals. It is not the same thing. So if you think, well, I can adopt an animal, then I can foster a kid. No, not the same. Definitely gonna have different scenarios going on there. And it's not like the rest of us are heartless or we're like some superhuman people that it's so easy for us to give them back. But I think going into it knowing that we aren't taking these children in to adopt them. The goal of foster care is reunification and not sending those kids back to the same environment that they came from. So how do we do that? That's going to take, the caseworkers, the judges, foster parents, all those people involved to pour into those families, to give them the resources they need, to love on them, to encourage them, to teach them how to parent, because a lot of them grew up in environments where they don't know how. This is all a cycle, whether it is, drug abuse or physical abuse. Most of these parents have been through that same thing themselves. And so you're not going to learn any different than how you were taught unless someone, comes in and teaches you differently. I've seen a lot of families that honestly, a lot of it is poverty and their children are being neglected because they don't have the resources to provide for them. And that's not a crime to be poor. But we need to make sure, obviously, that the children are safe and well cared for. So that's just, introducing them to those resources and things to help them out. And so I think about it in, yes, that is hard for me when a child's lived with me for 6 months plus, that, I've cared for everything about them. I've seen all those milestones. We've celebrated birthdays. I am not going to say that is easy to send them home, but that was the goal all along. And I celebrate with those parents. And I think about, as hard as it is for me to send them back home, how hard was that for that parent to lose their child and have them living somewhere with strangers that they didn't know. And so I just try to kind of flip the script on it. And, all of us are just, sometimes one mistake away from being in the same situation. And, God's grace saved us. And so we need to show that grace to other people too.
Yeah, I love that. I got to work in the jail a few years ago with some inmates and do therapy, and I realized like they're just people just like us. They just made one more mistake than I did, or made it a little bit bigger, or made it in public, or whatever it is, and now a lot of them have had ruined their lives forever. Some of them will get out, but yeah, I agree with that 100%. What do you think? Not what do you think? How is the foster and adoption ministry at Broadmoor making an impact and trying to meet some of those needs?
So my goal for sure all along was, okay, what's missing? Where are the holes in supporting foster parents? Why aren't they doing it? What can we do to help? We needed to make sure people realize, like, hey, this is still an issue and a need, and we need people to step up and take kids when they need a place to stay. And so we kind of just, instead of being overwhelmed by the numbers and the like, we can't fix this, like what's one thing we can do? So I think the first thing we did in our B group, our Sunday school class, did was the visitation rooms at the state building where the families have their visits were in pretty bad shape. And so we, raised funds and collected items and went in and renovated as much as we were allowed to those spaces to make them a little bit more comfortable and clean for those kids. And it might seem like a small thing, but when that's the one time a week that you have to spend with your kids and vice versa, your parents, like you want it to be fun and uplifting. And that building itself is just so kind of like sad and scary that we just want a little bit of that away and bring them a little bit of joy and comfort in those visits. And I think it was important too, not just for the families, but for the foster families, knowing, okay, this is safer. They have, kid friendly toys and things to play with. We had the caseworkers that would come by and say, thank you all so much for being here. Just like seeing us there and knowing that somebody was there to help and saw them and saw the need, was big to them, which I didn't see all the aspects of that, when we started out. And then we do a big event for foster families, at least once a year, just to kind of grow that community and get those families together. So there's just something about other people who know what you're going through. And it's just a fun, free event for them to have and spend time with, different families who are right where they are. And then also, I just kind of thought about caseworkers and how difficult their job was. And, we complain a lot about them and what they're not doing. But if you really think about what they do and what they see every day, some really hard things that they can't change and they can't fix themselves as hard as they try. And they were burning out really fast and they were going through caseworkers, like some would last 6 months. And it's important for cases for you to keep that same worker, just because they know everything that's going on and it causes a lot of issues when they switch out. And so we started doing a yearly appreciation luncheon for them, just to kind of encourage them and tell them we saw them, we know it's hard. Like, here's a cookie, like, we love you, we're praying for you. And then just trying to reach out to them periodically to do some of those, encouraging things and just, put a little joy into their lives when they see a lot of hard stuff. And then meeting some of the physical needs of foster families in our community. A lot of times families would take, say, a sibling group of 3, but they don't have enough beds. And so we would try to get them whatever they needed as far as bed wise. The same thing goes for bio families. Sometimes kids just were sleeping on the floor. And so to keep them in the home, we would provide beds and that kind of thing. And then if it was a family member that wanted to take a child in, but there were specific, physical needs that they needed to be able to do that, we try to provide that. So we can keep families together as often as we can, because we know that our foster families, we don't have as many as we need.
Sure. And that's the goal anyway, is to get the families back together, right? Talk about the house. So I know you're excited about the house. I've heard about the house a lot. How is the house that is being going to be used by the foster ministry at Broadmoor? How is that going to impact and make a difference in the community?
Now this is all that I hope that's going to happen, obviously, so it's not done yet. But so part of the house will be used as a community closet, so it can be utilized by foster families, bio families, kinship placements when they go with other family members home, and adoptive families. And we'll have kind of necessities, some clothing and shoes, and also those things that kids need, maybe right when they come into care, so that the caseworkers can come and grab stuff too for them if they don't have time to go to the store or whatever and shop for them. So they have what they need that first night with their foster families, pajamas and toiletries and that kind of thing. And the difference, we've had a storage unit. People have picked up things and dropped off things on my front porch. But this is a little bit more personal, where we can actually, listen and hear their stories and their struggles and what's going on and be able to pray with them. And we're hoping to have a freezer with some freezer meals and snacks and things to be able to send with them. So meeting those physical needs again, but still being able to love on them and encourage them while they're there for that. And then another part of the house is going to be used for visitation space. So like I said, we redid those visitation rooms, but they're still there in a building that is where those children were separated from their families. And so there's a lot of negative feelings associated with it. So this is going to be, you know, a living room, dining room space that they can visit in that looks like a home. And so it's a little bit more comfortable and hopefully will help to build some of those bonds back that maybe just that, you know, like fear over that particular place is keeping them from being able to do. I know some kids will cry in the parking lot before they even go in. They just see the building and it just, you know, brings back bad memories. So that's what we're hoping for that space. And again, being able to meet both families, bio and foster families, and share resources with them and that kind of thing in that space. And then eventually the hope is we have 2 bedrooms and a bathroom in there that we can utilize those for, what I'd say like emergency or respite placement. So maybe we want to keep a sibling set together, but an aunt's coming from out of town. So they can stay there for a couple of nights until aunt comes in and they can get all of that work so we can keep them together and not have to separate them. Or some of our teens or special needs kids, it's harder to place. So there may be a couple of nights until they can find placement. And so that would be a safe place for them to stay. And so, again, our volunteers would be able to stay with those kids, you know, play games with them, entertain them, give them a safe environment until they are in their permanent landing spot.
Yeah, Shannon, some of these kids are having to stay at the building, for the state building, correct, at night? Does that happen or?
So that was happening. I think it is still in other parishes. But Secretary Matlock, who is over DCFS, did say he doesn't want any kids staying in there anymore. And so they have utilized some other homes in our area, which now all of those resources have been shut down. So this is an urgent need, but again, we want to do all of this the correct way and get people trained that are going to volunteer in this capacity so everyone's safe. So it'll several months down the road for all of that to be set up. So prayers in the meantime that, you know, we can find foster families a safe place for these kids.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, we definitely don't want to have volunteers that don't know what they're doing because we don't want to take them from a not safe to still not safe.
Also not safe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very important. Everything's safe. I love it. Shannon, I mean, I love what you're doing. You know, I think obviously you and Aaron are amazing people. I know you're not going to say that, but I think y'all are, and I just love what y'all do for the community. What keeps y'all motivated to do all of this?
I mean, I think just the fact that, you know, God first loved us and he calls us to love others. I mean, I don't need much more than that. And yeah, like, I think sometimes I could sit and get overwhelmed by all the needs around me, but this is what God put my eyes on. This is what he's equipped me to do in this time. And so I want to use the gifts and talents he's given me for his glory. And I hope that others will join in and see that these kids are worth it. These families are worth it. And that, you know, ultimately we're showing them the love of Christ and that, you know, we'll all be together one day in heaven. So.
Love it. How can people get involved with the foster and adoption ministry at Broadmoor or just foster care in general?
So us for sure, we're right now just kind of outfitting the house for what it's going to be used for now. So it's going to be a little bit different than its life in the past. And so we're collecting some different items just to get that set up. And we'll post an Amazon wish list soon with that kind of thing. And then, you know, we'll need volunteers to help organize the closet space and be there when families come in and out, and the same for the visitation space. So it's going to take a lot of people to run this. It can't just be, and I have an amazing team of women that help me to do all the things that we do, but it's going to take a lot more hands than just us. And that is the point. I feel like this is the church's calling, and I think people are excited and happy to be a part and have a place to serve. And so I think that's what this is going to be, a physical location where they can actually be the hands and feet of Jesus to people in our community. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that too. Go to Foster and Adoption Ministry on Facebook. Is that where you can get most of your information about it? Is that correct? Or go to Broadmoor's website?
Yeah, and then we also have an Instagram that's similar, and some people call up to the church and they can connect you or tell you. We have an email address that if you want to donate things or need to know how to help or you want to help, that you can reach out.
Yeah, what's the email address?
Can I give that and you share it?
Can I do what?
Can I give it to you later and you share it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll share it in the show notes. All right, I'm going to give you the last word of the podcast. So go.
Okay. The last word?
Yeah.
What? I don't know. What do people normally say?
I'm awesome. No, just whatever, whatever. If there's an upcoming event, anything, just or just your encouragement.
Okay. I say that God is good and He has blessed us, and let's go out and be a blessing.
Yeah, I love it. Shannon, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Shreveport Bossier Local Lens. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and share the podcast to help us spread the word about the amazing people in our community.